Hey, what's up, everybody? And we're live here at Eastern Current, episode number 15. Got a great show lined up for you. Judson is just logging into Facebook there so he can help keep up with the comments.
Yes, I am.
So you'll see Pierre has jumped on and said, "Hey, yo, what's up? This is gonna be such a great this is gonna be such a great episode. We've had so much fun in the pre-show, just talking to Ryan." And he was trying to tell us some stories. We wouldn't let him tell us because we're like, dude, we got to save it for the show. But loads of stories. One of the fishiest guys I've ever met. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But before we do, are you ready, Judson? I'm going to bring you a little pretty face on here.
I am ready to rock and roll. There we go. Sorry, guys. I forgot to grab my hat right before we went live. So you got to look at my bald head today.
So we're going to do a fun giveaway tonight. We're not going to do Catch of the Week. We're still trying to get caught up, shipping all that stuff out, because once again, this isn't our full-time gig by any means. It's something fun that we do. We've both been pretty busy. And so we were trying to coordinate picking and dropping stuff. Anyway, we're still working on that, but we are going to give away, since we're going to be talking about speckled trout, we're going to do this is our first of a 4-part series that we're going to do. So we got Ryan on tonight. And then on October 1st, that's not our next show, is it? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So October 1st, we're gonna have on Christopher Bush he's actually from Texas, talking about trophy trout. And then we got a couple more shows lined up, so we're gonna do a 4-part series. But to kick it off, I have a company called Fish Tumbler, and so we've designed these cool fish. I guess you can kind of see it on there. Just these fish skin tumblers, if you will. So my wife digitally painted these. I'm going to give one of these away tonight, but you can't win it just by commenting. You can only win and be qualified to win by sharing, and then we're going to give this away, and we'll ship it right to you, after the show. But we're going to give it away at the end of the broadcast.
And that's sharing our Facebook show on your show right now. Page, on your Facebook page right now.
Yeah, because we're going to pick from the thing that says shared.
And we should probably bring that up again in a little bit as some more people hop on.
Yeah, we'll bring that up a couple more times. So that's a cool. This is 20 ounces. Keeps your drink hot and cold. All that stuff. You guys know.
At the same time. It's crazy. At the
same time. It's one of those magical cups. So yeah, let us know where you guys are watching from. We got Cliff on already, man.
What's up, Cliff?
And Landon Ray. Landon Ray is on there. Happy birthday, Ryan. Maybe we'll save the happy birthdays for when Ryan's actually on.
Yeah, we will.
He's sitting on the couch, but we told him, like, you cannot
talk.
Don't
say a word.
Or you're going to get Judy chopped right in the throat. So anyway, so he's on here. So, yeah, so you guys go check it out. Go, I don't know, what else they need to do? Online stores.
Yeah, go buy some stuff off the store. It does really help us. We're not trying to make any money. We have a lot of fun doing this, and we just really want to do this because we enjoy creating this community of people in this area that can talk fishing together, and we want to just give away right now. We're not trying to make anything from this. So we do have a couple subscriptions of software and different things, different little payments that come up for this, and if you buy a shirt or a hat, you're like helping with a month of paying to do this podcast.
Absolutely.
So our expenses aren't high, but it definitely helps, and you can check that out. Billy.
Uh-oh.
What's up?
I was like,
I just completely forgot what I was going to say.
He's putting me on the spot here. So anyway, guys, so go check all that stuff out. And then I have no idea what he's going to say. If you think of it, feel free to share. But until then, I'm going to bring up the sponsors and let you give them a little bit of a shout out.
Yeah, definitely.
Boom, there they are.
All right, we got Ceto. If you hit a sandbar or you dump your boat out on the concrete, they can help you.
You want those guys.
You want them. And we're going to give you a little bit of a discount if you just mention Eastern Current when you sign up. We're not going to give it to you. Ceto's going to give it to you. The discount.
Yeah.
Also, AFCO, incredible on the water gear as well as some lifestyle clothing and marshwear as well. Great stuff. Thorpe Creative. Anything creative, everything creative. Thorpe Creative. I just made that up for him. Smoothie King.
I feel like I'm going to have to pay you some marketing dollars.
Smoothie King is the best smoothies in Wilmington, hands down. If you argue with me, I will shut you down. Eastern Angling, one of the lousiest guide services around.
Oh, come on.
Call them up if you like a good boat ride. And I Strike Fishing, definitely my favorite jigs to throw.
Yeah,
you should definitely bring our sponsors on from now on because you do a much better job of it.
No, dude, you did great, man. Ceto, you don't want to be on the qualified captain, so make sure you call them first.
Make sure you got them on speed dial so they can get you off that sandbar quick.
Awesome, man. And dude, another fun thing that I have I have gotten into this past like 6 weeks is I got my real estate license. So Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
boy.
You. So super excited about that. So if you want to buy, sell, invest in real estate, get in touch with me. I'm sure the company I'm going to be working with, KVT Realty under Keller Williams, we're talking today. They're like, hey, we want to promote, sponsor your guys' show. Like, how do we be a part of it? So who knows? We're going to work out something with those guys to, either do some giveaways or do some stuff like that. So if you guys are looking for any of that stuff, hit me up. I work with the number one team in Wilmington under Keller Williams, which is the number one real estate company in the world. I had to do that, man. I was so excited.
No, for sure. People. Billy is the number one hustler. He's literally doing it all, and he just has so much passion for business and working, and he works harder than anybody I know. So,
dude, I just want to help. I just want to help people, and that's just
for sure. I think you're going to kill it in the real estate game.
We were really helped by our real estate agent, which is the guy I'm going to work with this company.
And here's something I'm going to throw out right now: if you buy a house through Billy, I will give you a free fishing trip.
Oh, you just heard it right there. If you come
free fishing trip if you buy a house through Billy,
buy or sell, or just give me a wad of cash, he's going to take you on a free trip.
Yep.
And I'll even go with you on that trip.
No, you will not. I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. So anyway, thank you to all of our sponsors. And once again, if you're just tuning in, be sure to share this broadcast for a chance to win one of these 20-ounce tumblers that is digitally painted. My wife did these digital paintings a while ago, and so we just put them on these cups. And we're going to be sending you one of those. It's fishtumbler.com. We got some other ones on there. I don't really promote that website too much, but
yeah, he's got some awesome designs. What other designs do you have?
We got like a brook trout. We got that mermaid design right there.
Oh yeah.
So that one's pretty cool.
Merman.
I don't know if that one's on there or not, but anyway, got some on there. It's no big
for sure.
deal.
And that's just go share this on your page right now, so other people can hop on and check it out.
And we're beginning away. Let's see who is joining us real quick. Forrest Gray said he's been trying to order a hoodie for a month, or a sweatshirt, and that is correct because he wanted a one that was a little different color. So I haven't worked out the details. Once again, Forrest, I'm going to get with you tomorrow. I'm going to put it on my to-do list. I'm going to get with you tomorrow.
He is putting a date on it.
We're going to finalize this thing, and next week I'll share. Well, you won't get it before next week, but when you do get it, we'll share a picture of you wearing it.
We will.
In 80-degree weather. Perfect. Well, man, let's not wait any longer. Let's get this joker on
Let's
here.
do it.
Let's get him on. Where's he at? Hold on. I got to find him.
Dun, 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 the birthday boy himself, Ryan Christoffersen.
Ryan Christoffersen. There he is. Right on camera. How you doing, man?
Are you related to Chris Christoffersen?
I am not.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Are we talking about the Winnie the Pooh, Chris Christoffersen?
Yes.
I was thinking about that today. I'm like, I bet you've never heard of Winnie the Pooh jokes.
Spelled different.
Spelled totally different.
Yeah.
He
spells his with a K.
Yeah.
But you guys, it's Ryan's birthday.
It's Ryan's birthday.
It is. But I'm happy to be here. I mean,
For
I
sure.
like talking fishing.
So we can't even. So happy birthday to you.
Don't do
okay,
that.
no, nobody's doing that.
No, let's not do that.
Is it because of my voice?
No, your voice was good, but that was enough there.
Perfect. So you guys make sure you send him a happy birthday. A lot of happy birthdays on the chat tonight.
Nice.
Got one from Lee.
Thanks, guys.
Got one from Lee. Got one from my father-in-law, Brian. He always comes in and hangs out with
He's
you.
a great guy. And I enjoy talking with him every time he comes in.
Yeah, man, he is. He loves fishing, loves you, talks a lot about you. So everybody's saying happy birthday to you on here. I don't know if you can see the chat or not. Probably not. But
no, definitely
not. Willis Green says, what's the promo code for iStrike? Willis, I believe you just go on there, and they have like a drop-down menu where you can... I don't know how it works. You have to get on there and check it out.
We don't have a promo code through what we're doing, but if you buy in bulk, they're going to already throw that discount on there for you, up to 40% if you're buying 50 jig heads at a time. And I always tell people, if you're going to buy jig heads, go buy go 25 or 50 jig heads at a time.
It doesn't make sense to buy any less, guys.
No, it's such a waste of money. It's such a waste of money. I mean, if you're fishing once or twice a year, but if you're fishing on a regular basis, you need a lot of jig heads.
Just go buy them, yeah. So that's how you save that money on there. Jordan Nason says, stoked to hear this episode. Oh, you know what? I think those guys, there's another person, Pierre, here. He's saying there's a temporary code. Now, iStrike may have had their own sale going on and additional 15% off and all that, but that's all their stuff. We're just big fans of them and want to tell you, hey, go on there and check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Cool. Well, awesome, man. Well, let's get into this. Let's get into this, man. Let's get into talking about some trout fishing with the man, the myth, the legend
himself.
Ryan.
We've had more buzz about this show than a lot of shows. We're excited to have you on here. Let's start with the age-old question of every show. How did you get into fishing, Ryan? Please tell us.
I guess my dad and my grandfather, we just fished. I mostly freshwater fished as a kid. I grew up on Long Island surrounded by salt water, but for whatever reason, early on, I did a lot of fishing for sunfish and bass and things like that, and I loved it. I mean, I basically begged my parents to take me to any pond to either catch fish or tromp around in the swamp trying to catch frogs until I had my driver's license, and from then on, it was on. Like, the second I got my driver's license, I was out there fishing.
Like
anywhere I could.
Every day, every afternoon.
I mean, anytime I could get away. I mean, I've always done a lot of other things. I skated and I surfed, but like...
You're in a pretty big band for a while, too.
I played in a lot of bands when I was younger and enjoyed doing that, but the one thing that has stuck through with me for my entire life is having a rod in my hand fishing.
That's
it's
awesome.
Just, I don't know why it held on as long as it did, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah. You're probably one of the fishiest guys I talk to, like, as far as just going, if I need something, or even if I talk to somebody else in the community and go, who do I talk to about figuring this out? They go, oh, man, go see Ryan. Go talk to Ryan.
If someone asked me top 5 fishiest people that you know, I would honestly, and this is not because it's your birthday, Ryan. This is because this is the honest truth. You'd be in the top 5 fishiest people I know.
Blush.
Oh,
dude,
man.
I hope I love
5.
when you blush.
Here we go. Top 5.
But seriously, top 5 fishiest people.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Or at least you seem it, all right? So just rock it.
Yeah, you're putting out the persona, so just own that and keep going with it. But I don't want to give you all the credit though, because here's Paul Christoffersen. Is that your?
It's my father.
That's your father.
Awesome.
He's saying he's proud of you. That's his boy. He's like, I taught him everything he forgot already.
That's awesome.
So thanks, Paul, for raising such a great fisherman.
For
we
sure.
appreciate that.
And a great friend.
And a great
And a
friend.
great birthday boy.
A great birthday. I know. I could just stay on the birthday thing for the rest of the evening. So anyway, what is that in that flask?
It's
water,
magic trout juice,
holy water.
This is what he uses to catch all those trout. So anyway, cool deal, man. Well, let's talk about that. First of all, I want to clear something up really quick that I made a mistake on. You sent me a picture. I posted it. I thought it was the 10-pound or the 9.7-pound trout or whatever the official weigh-in of that trout was. And so I put 10-pound trout, and we all know social media and people kind of get a little weird and wild. But that was more closer to like an 8-pound trout. Is that correct?
It was. I'm going to be honest. I never put that fish on a scale because I let her swim pretty quickly.
So it could have been 12-pound trout. We never know.
It definitely was not 12.
13.
It was somewhere. It was right around 8 pounds. Is my solid guesstimate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. So that was.
And that was this spring.
So, that was this spring.
Yeah.
And was that also fishing, like wading or walking?
It was
fishing?
on foot. It was
Okay.
on foot, and that fish was caught on top water right at daybreak.
Okay.
I had been fishing since about 4:35 o'clock in the morning that day, and we caught a couple fish earlier, but that fish came right at light.
Okay. So right at daybreak.
Yep.
on
That's
top
awesome.
water.
Yep.
Man, that's so sick.
Yeah,
so
that's
solid.
that's,
Such a solid
that's awesome.
fish.
Would you say trout fishing is your favorite? Is that your favorite type of fishing? Is that your favorite thing to do?
Right now, with where I am in my life, yes, absolutely. I'd say that there is no other fish that does it for me around here like that. If the reason I like trout fishing so much is because I grew up surf fishing for stripers in the Northeast, and it is literally the same game. There's literally nothing different about it except for the scale. Instead of fishing, 10 and 11 foot rods with 3 and 4 ounce plugs or bucktails, you were fishing, half ounce plugs, but the locales and the tides and the pressure changes and all that stuff that goes into it is the same. So I luckily had a jump on it moving down here that all my original knowledge of stripers transferred very well.
Yeah.
And where are you originally from?
I'm from Long Island, New York, the east end of Long Island. Grew up in Center Moriches.
Get out of here, Yankee. I don't care if it is your birthday. No, just kidding.
Where I grew up is some of the best striper fishing that you could ever want to have anywhere, from fishing in the back bay to fishing inlets and on the beach. It's phenomenal. I grew up 30 minutes from Montauk.
That's awesome.
David said, "Hey, I'm just tuning in. What's the topic?" Well, welcome to the broadcast, David. The topic is
Gator trout.
Gator trout, speckled trout, specks. What else they call them around here? I don't know.
The old snaggletooths.
The old snaggletooth.
All right, let's get to the topic. Let's just get into the topic that everyone wants to talk about.
Man. We want to hear the story.
There's a really big trout.
A huge trout.
A really big trout that Ryan caught. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Exactly.
Just tell us the story. Take us from the beginning to the end.
All right. Well, you got to like interject and like ask questions at some point because, so I caught this fish in a place that I've caught a decent amount of big fish.
And where's that place? I'm just joking.
Over the last 5-6 years, I've caught a decent amount of big fish there. I mean, 2 years before I caught this fish, I had a fish what I thought was dead to rights on her side in the current that I think would have probably mimicked, if not beat, her weight, and pulled hooks on her after literally thinking she was mine. And that's just what kept me coming back to the same spot, because the spot was handed down to me by some old timers that two of them honestly have passed on. One of them is still around and can't fish it anymore because he just can't fish that kind of area anymore. It was passed down to me by some of the best trout fishermen I've ever met in my life. And that's why I don't talk about where it is.
Fair enough.
I was lucky enough to have it handed to me by people better than me to this day that I strive to be as good as they may have been, before they passed on.
Well, let's talk about what makes a good trout spot like that. Like, what are you looking for to create this area where you could potentially go catch a 10-pound trout?
There can be a couple different things, but one of the main things for me is a spot that is tends to be a little bit deeper than a lot of stuff people fish for trout. These fish will hold in 10, 16 foot of water sometimes, holding around structures so they can break that current, because usually places that are that deep have some movement to them. Big trout don't eat that much. I mean, they eat a lot, but they eat it in small doses. I've been told, and I'm not going to sit here and claim to be an expert. I've been told that, and everything I can research on it says that big trout over 7-8 pounds, they don't eat it but every 5-7 days. They want one big meal.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with a lot of the baits that I throw, and even the bait that I caught that fish on. I think that a lot of people would look at some of the stuff that I fish and consider it bigger than what most people throw for trout. People consider trout fishing a finesse fishing a lot of the times, throwing light jig heads and really fluttery baits that sink slowly, and that is right. It's not wrong. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. Like, there's a lot of ways to catch a lot of different fish. I've caught some big fish on small baits, but I've caught a lot more bigger fish on
bigger baits,
on larger baits. I mean, even like we were talking about, you posted that picture of that one this spring. A lot of people throw spook juniors and stuff like that, a very common bait for speckled trout. Spook juniors, or even skitter walks. That fish that you guys posted for the picture of this podcast was caught on a full size spook, the 3-hook style. It's a big bait. It's 5.25 inches, I think.
Oh wow!
I mean, it dwarfs a spook junior.
Yeah.
So I think that gets you a lot more bites. But you were asking about spots, so
yeah, like what?
We'll get back to that.
We'll definitely get back to baits, and any that's good, wherever it goes is good. But what makes you're jumping into depth is a big thing for those bigger fish.
I think that places, there's two things, and it depends on time of year. There's so much to it that like that fish, the biggest fish I ever caught, the biggest trout I've ever caught, was caught in a spot that is probably, depending on where you are in your cast, on the top of your cast, you're probably in 18 foot of water. And the end of your cast, you're probably in 6. It's got a steep gradient. And
how deep do you feel? How far off the bottom do you feel like your bait is when you're getting bit in the areas?
I try to bump bottom through my whole cast.
Okay.
I don't want to dredge it, but I want to
picking it up.
I want to feel that. I want to feel a little bit of bottom through my whole cast. Trout tend to sit on the bottom looking up. That's unless like it's slower current where they can kind of be up in the water column and do that kind of stuff. And I'm not gonna lie and say I haven't seen them do that in this spot. Like I've seen shrimp in this spot where those fish are sitting there in 16 foot of water feeding on the surface.
Yeah, wow.
So you got to adjust totally to the conditions of that particular night. But to get into that particular night that I caught this fish, to be honest, I had a really bad night that night up until I caught that fish. I think I caught one fish before that fish.
Oh, wow.
But
you must suck.
I fished.
I'm just kidding.
I fished about four spots before I got to that spot that night, and I almost didn't go there that night. I fished all around a lot of my more local spots that it was pre-storm, prefrontal kind of deal where I think we were like 3 or 4 days before a full moon, which is right where you want to be. I don't like fishing on a full moon, but I like fishing 3 days before, 3 days after.
Okay.
I honestly don't like a full moon. Like I usually like fishing a new moon better. Fish, especially in these situations where you're fishing on foot, fish are a lot more comfortable around a new moon because it's dark to get into shallow water.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, and I'll preface this also by saying,
say that again. Repeat that again.
So I like fishing a lot more around a new moon than I do a full moon. Full moon, I think, is a boat fisherman thing, and I've had great nights on foot around a full moon. But fish in general feel a lot more comfortable under the darkness of a new moon getting into shallow water where you can reach them on foot.
Gotcha. That's good information right there.
I really, really, really feel that you can, and like I said, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But do I concentrate around a new moon more than I do a full moon? Yes. But that particular night, like I said, I fished for almost 4 hours before I even got to the spot that I caught that fish at. I knew that I had this thing in my mind that I needed to fish that night because of conditions. And anyone that follows that kind of stuff follows your pressure drops and spikes and follows your moon phases and your tide phases and your temperature changes and frontal conditions and all that stuff. You get those feelings.
In this particular evening, was it like you said? It was pre-storm conditions.
Yeah.
So was it like a chill in the air, a little cold snap?
I mean, I caught that fish. If I remember correctly, it was November 22nd. It was already cold out.
Okay, so it was already cold. Yeah,
it was already chilly out down here. You know, for North Carolina anyway, it was chilly out.
It was 75.
But it was
the next day.
It was, it was getting. There was going to be a good little snap and some even for that year. 2 years ago, we didn't have a really cold winter. It wasn't terribly cold out at that time, but it was going to snap cold over the next couple days. And they'll feed ahead of something like that. Like trout, especially big fish, will get down because big trout, just like any other big fish, in my opinion, they're lazy. They don't want to work for food. They want to, like I said, they feed every 5 to 7 days. They want to eat one big meal and be done.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to the restaurant, it's not like you go back in the kitchen. And
do you want one? Do you want one shrimp?
To you.
Do you want one shrimp or do you want a filet mignon?
Yeah,
that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I had a feeling about the night. I'm not going to say that I didn't. I definitely had a feeling about the night. I happened to after being discouraged after fishing about 4 or 5 places. I called a buddy and said, "Hey man, what are you doing tonight?" And he said, "I am at so-and-so." And I said, "Cool, I'll be there in about 35 minutes. It was 35, 40-minute drive to where I caught this fish. He was at
North
the spot.
Or south? No, I'm just messing.
So I said, "You caught anything yet?" He said, "I had one about 6 pounds about an hour ago."
Dang.
I said, "All right, cool." I drove up there and the person I'm talking about is a guy named John Workman. He's a really good friend of mine, and he's been there for 2 really important nights of my life in fishing. And we're not like super close. Like we kind of just coming in and out of each other's lives.
Yeah.
But he's been there
at
for
the
2
at the perfect times.
At perfect moments. It's kind of weird.
Are these both fishing moments?
Yeah, they're both fishing moments. One of them was him putting that fish that I'm talking about in a net for me. The other one was him saving my life one night.
Dude, those are equally important.
Yes.
So I drove up there, and me and him started fishing, and tide's ripping. It's an incoming tide at this spot. It rolls through this place. I'd say it moves 4 to 5 knots through this place in 16 to 18 foot of water. It moves.
Yeah.
You know, a whole cast lasts 10 to 12 seconds.
Wow.
You're putting a bait out on the bottom. The fish, and I'll tell you right now, the fish was caught on a 5-inch storm bait. It was caught on a storm swim shad. That's what the fish was caught on. It hangs next to the picture of the fish in the shop. Like a lot of people are so secretive about what they catch fish on, this, that, and the other thing. And I think that's kind of BS. Like I want people to go catch fish. I'd love for someone to go catch a 10-pound trout tomorrow. It ain't gonna hurt my feelings.
For sure.
Yeah, it'd be exciting.
I think that ego that's in fishing these days is something that needs to be left behind.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna step up my ego on my 60+ pound black drum I posted.
Yes, sir.
If you think you can beat it, bring it, and I'll give you a cup. No, I'm just kidding.
I've always wanted to go catch one of those big black drum. I've heard about them for years. I mean, because I'm part of this loop, I know where it was caught and everything.
I'm about to make you sick right now because that was my first black drum.
That was it, literally. And I caught a bunch of little ones that day.
Oh,
I kept banging little ones, and then he's like, oh.
So I think one of the coolest part about that fish that I caught is that I'm pretty positive, not 100% positive because I'll never know. I'm pretty positive that fish gave me 2 shots that night.
Oh, wow.
So I'm basically swinging a big storm shad the same way you swing a grub through any rip or a mirrorlure through any rip trout fishing.
So hold on, let's pause right there because I don't have that experience. So can you explain
that?
Do. Well,
you swing flies through rips for trout, don't you?
Okay, I understand that. Then,
okay,
yeah.
So
what
I'm saying is, like,
explain it for the people that don't understand the swinging of the bait.
Okay, yeah, like the swinging.
How you're setting up where you're casting in the current where it's in.
Okay, so when you're trying to swing a bait through a piece of water that you're trying to fish, basically you're casting up current and trying to stay tight with that bait, tight enough that you know when it hits the bottom.
Okay,
you're casting up current. So if your current's moving right to left, you're casting to your right on a 45 usually, roughly. I mean, this is going to vary, but roughly on a 45, you're going to throw your bait out. You're going to let it sink till it hits the bottom. You can come tight with that bait and swing it through that rip in front of you. And it's hard. I mean, I could get into explaining what a rip is, but swing it through that piece of water that you're trying to fish.
Through the current, yeah. So swing it through there.
And at a certain point, once it gets past you, because of that current and the lift of hydrodynamics, that bait's going to come off the bottom and be out of the strike zone.
I gotcha.
So you're trying to pick apart pieces of water in front of you, and you can move along a specific piece and make different casts to pick apart that little piece of water. And you can make shorter casts to get closer to you, longer casts to fish out here. You know, you can do a little bit of all of it to pick apart that piece of water in front of you. So
when you're on that retrieve, and when you're talking about the kind of bait that you're fishing with, in particular that night, just because you mentioned it, are you just keeping your line tight and letting the current do the work, or are you like
it's varied? It's very, very varied because in the beginning of your cast, you don't have any restriction from the current against you.
True.
So you're kind of have to impart that action with your reel or your rod tip, depending on what kind of bait you're fishing. The second you get past yourself, like past your 12 o'clock in front of you, you have to slow down because any more that, like, once there's resistance, and that's all feeling with, when it's over here, you don't have to do as much.
I got
The second it passes, you have to slow down, or I did that backwards. When it's over here, you have to do more.
Yeah,
once it passes you down current, you have to slow down and do less. Yeah. So it's if you if you're doing the same exact retrieve through your entire retrieve, you're messing up. Like,
oh, gotcha.
You have to think about every part of every cast you make. I always say, like, one of my biggest things in fishing is that we have so little control over what we're doing in this atmosphere. Like, you literally don't have control of almost anything. You have control of the rod and reel you're fishing, the line you're fishing. Like, I always tell people, like, don't ever go to a spot and fish a leader you fished yesterday. It's 30 cents. Tie a new leader. Be in control of what...
I never heard that before. That's good info.
Yeah, really good info.
Be in control of every aspect of what you're doing that you can. They're little things, but they make all the difference. I mean, how many of us have hooked a big fish and broke it off because of something that you probably did wrong?
My thing is hooks. Like, I need to replace hooks way more than I do. The amount of fish I lose on mirror lures and topwater plugs because of not changing hooks.
No, yeah.
And that's 100% true. It makes 100, like, it's a huge difference. Like, I mean, there's certain hooks out there. I mean, I could tell you what I fish, like, for certain things. Like, if I at all think that I messed up something, like, if I snag, like, say you're fishing a jig head through a rip, like we were talking about, and you snag it for a second. You snag it just a little bit. And you go like this, and you shake it off, and you get your jig back. Luckily. You know, you didn't lose what you were fishing. You reel it in, and you feel your leader. A lot of people are like, oh, that ain't that bad. Ain't that bad is too much.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Well, what pound leader are you fishing when you're fishing these big fish?
I don't fish anything over 15.
Anything over 15, okay.
That fish that I caught, my big fish caught on 12. 90% of the time I fish 12.
Okay.
Trout are really finicky, especially in clear water. I mean, the night that I caught that fish, I didn't need to be fishing 12. The water wasn't super clear.
Yeah.
So I don't think I fish long leaders. That's one thing I will say about leader. I don't fish anything under 6 foot. Usually I fish about 8 foot a leader. For trout, especially when it's water's clear. And anyone that says that leader size doesn't matter, I think you're wrong. I've personally seen it next to me, you know, me fishing 12, the guy fishing next to me fishing 8, and fishing the same lure, fishing the same way, getting stomped and me getting no love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couple people in the chat want to know if it matters with fluoro.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think that brand matters that much. I'll tell you that I fish Seagar. I fish Seagar Blue Label. And I used to fish Yozuri for years, and I don't dislike Yozuri. It's a little bit stiffer than what I've decided I wanted.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Man, that's all good information, and I like and you know, I knew that about fly fishing, what you're saying, so I understood that about the fly fishing as far as, you know, casting a 45 and kind of working different pieces of water. But, you know, moving here and fishing with like jigs and lures and top waters, I don't even think that way. I'm like, oh, this will do whatever. But you work it the same way, so that's a good way to think of that.
It's all about picking apart pieces of water.
Yeah. Which I don't think people, I mean, I don't do that. I mean, I haven't done that. You know, the first time I ever heard about like, oh, fan out and fan out this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece was when I moved to the coast. Otherwise, you know, I'm fishing a 6 to 8 foot creek in the mountains. So I'm like, I'm fishing this whole thing.
Well, it makes it fun too when you walk into a spot and you're like, oh, make 5 casts on it. They're not in there. Like when you're on foot, you're like, all right, I'm going to pick apart every inch of
that's
this.
A really good point because I do fish out of a boat. I mean, I own a boat and I fish out of other people's boats. And I think that a lot of people fish on the trolling motor, and I think that's wrong.
What about spot lock?
Spot lock's fine.
You just want to be stationary.
I just want to be stationary. Yeah. I want to get at the angle that I want to be at. If I'm fishing out of my boat for trout, 97% of the time I fish on the hook. By that I mean I'm anchored.
Yeah.
I like getting to a spot and picking it apart and knowing that I have given my due diligence to that spot, that there isn't a fish sitting there that I missed.
Now, do you pick it apart with different types of lures?
Absolutely, of course. So I'm going to fish. I guess there's always the three main things in trout fishing. You have your jig in soft plastic, you have a suspending bait, and you have a top water. Once it gets cold out, the top water goes out the door.
Okay.
A lot of people will say that you can fish it a little bit later than I do, and they're people that I respect.
Yeah.
People that I think are significantly better than I am at this. I don't have confidence in it. And I think that that's a big part of it too, is fishing baits that you have confidence in. But at the same time, not pigeonholing yourself to not trying new things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a hard line to not say, this is what I know of it, so I'm going to stick with it. But like I said, you want to be confident, but at the same time, I've caught fish on baits that like I had a good feeling about, but I had no confidence because I'd never thrown them before.
Oh, gotcha.
I feel like people get stuck in their ways. I fish with a lot of older guys that have been fishing around these parts for way longer than I have. That like they see what I do and they're like, I'm gonna fish this, this grub, whatever it is. And there's people that I truly respect as fishermen around here that have taught me, a wealth of information.
Yeah. That
they're so stuck in their ways that they won't branch out and try different things. Like things change. There's new baits coming out every year. Things that get me excited about fishing. Like one of them being like the new Z-Man diesel minnows and the 5-inch. Even the 7-inch.
They're awesome baits. Those 5-inch diesels.
They swim really pretty.
They do. That little bit of float.
Like I said earlier, I like big stuff, like stuff that people would consider a little bit.
Baits, and I cannot lie.
Exactly.
All right, so let me jump in right here. So you get to we're gonna jump back into the story. I want to finish the story real quick, and then I want to pick your brain about approach, tackle, all that good stuff. But so you get to the bridge. Your buddy caught a 6-pounder, and you start fishing. You're swinging that bait. Let's talk about the bite. How long were you fishing at this spot beforehand? And how just tell us everything.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been fishing at the spot for probably 6 years, if I had to guess.
I mean that night.
Oh, that
how long
night?
were you, you get to the spot and
I probably had an hour in it.
An hour in it. Okay.
And I caught a fish earlier that probably about 15 minutes into that night, that was probably, solid 4-pound fish, good solid fish. So I mentioned this earlier. I think that fish gave me 2 shots that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I the whole time. So when I got there, tide was just starting to come in.
Dude, perfect timing. Someone just said, what was the tide doing?
It was just starting to come in that spot. And I'm going to go off topic for 1 second because of something that people ask me all the time. People always ask me, what's the best tide to fish for trout? Or what's the best tide to fish for redfish?
Moving.
Yes. And also, every single spot you fish is different.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm talking that spots in the same creek 100 yards apart could fish better on different tides.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's one thing that people don't talk about. Like this point in a creek could fish really, really, really good on a falling tide, where this point in a creek could fish really, really good on a rise. That's time spent. You don't learn that stuff without fishing.
Yeah.
And fishing that spot more than once. Just because you don't catch a fish on a spot that you heard catches fish, go back. Fish it on 6 different pieces of tide.
Wow. Man, I love your philosophy in the way that you kind of think about it, because I think a lot of people are just like, I went and fished that spot and, it didn't produce, so I'm never going back. But you're like, no, man, go back, try different baits, try different this, change your leader. I mean, it sounds like work, but if you want to be good and you want to land a 10-pound trout or, one of these Gator trout, it seems like you got to go out there and put in the time and really and figure that out. So I really, like that part of your mentality to go, hey, this isn't just fishing, but this is like an art, really. Like,
right.
Essentially, it sounds to me like you approach it as like a project. Like I'm going to build a house. I'm going to build my system.
And
here.
I really try to. Like I really think about a lot of the aspects that I think that I don't think that people don't think about them. I think that they don't give them enough thought.
So would you say you think it would be better for someone to, if they've got some good trout spots, would it be better for them in a fall winter scenario to be like, all right, I'm going to take these 3 spots. I know these are productive spots. I'm going to fish these 3 spots really hard this year. Different tides, different times. Or would you say, hey, I'm going to hit as many spots as I can this year and fish a bunch of different stuff?
I think, Judd, I think me and you have talked about this before. One of my favorite pieces of advice I was ever given by anyone in fishing is that when I started seriously fishing, and this was back in New York for stripers, I was told by a guy that's been doing it forever. He said, man, and this is when the internet just started getting in on fishing. And like, I know we're sitting here on the internet talking about this, but the internet has done great things for fishing and it has done terrible things for fishing.
Yeah.
And it's created a lot of people that report chase. And
gotcha.
And I've learned over the years to not do it and to create my own reports to be reporting to no one but myself. And my friends, you know, I mean, I'm going to tell, I mean, me and Judd are close. Like I'm going to, like, if I'm doing something, I want him to know about it. I want like my close people to know what I'm doing, but don't like what the piece of advice I was talking about is that I should pick 3 spots and fish them for 2 years and don't fish anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, we had Dave Flatt on the show.
Yeah.
I can't remember what episode it was, like 2 or 3 or something like that. And so, yeah, man, go ahead. Go for it, dude. And so, anyway, so we had him on the show, and he said he fished, I think, one creek for like, I want to say it was a couple of years or something.
Yeah,
crazy.
he wanted to just learn that creek really, really, really well.
So, I think that's good. Well, hey, Ryan had to step out just for a second, but I want to take this time just to tell you, you guys can have an opportunity to win this, not exactly this one because I've been drinking out of it for like a year, but
a speckled trout.
A speckled trout, 20-ounce tumbler. So this is a stainless steel tumbler. Comes with a lid, all that stuff that my wife digitally painted. You can check these out at fishtumbler.com, which is a website we own and sell these fish tumblers off of. But we're going to be giving one of these away, and how you win it is to share this broadcast. So just wherever the share button is on your screen there, just share it, let people know, hey, they're talking about speckled trout, yada, 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 and go from there. So you'll have an opportunity to win that. All you got to do is share. We're going to pick a winner at the end of the broadcast. So anyway, Ryan just jumped back in here, so we're going to get back to talking about his fishing strategies for speckled trout.
We're so ADD. We keep trying to get to this story, and we're all like jumping into these different little segues. We're like, oh, good question.
Oh, yeah, because, you know, when you're thinking about it, you're just like, oh, man, I'm thinking about it.
For sure. For sure. We should.
Can you guys hear? Oh, there we go. Yeah, that was weird. I couldn't hear myself for a second.
I had to turn down there for a second.
All right. So I guess what I was saying is that particular fish, and I'll never know the truth about it, but so basically I had been there for about 15 minutes. I was throwing a 4-inch storm, which is a smaller version of what I actually caught that fish on. And I was fishing that bait because it fishes better when, you know, in a slower current in that depth of water. That's something that you got to think about too. Just because you're fishing, say, a 3/16 ounce jig head for an hour on a tide, an hour later you might need to go up to a quarter. You might, an hour later than that, need to go up to a 3/8. Having all those jig heads in your arsenal to pick apart that same piece of water is really important.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So at a certain point, that 4-inch bait, I wasn't feeling the bottom that I wanted, or the way I wanted to feel it. The current started moving pretty good. Like I said, we were right before a full moon, about 4 days, so you're already starting to get big tides. Tides moving faster than it would normally move, and I went in my box and picked out another 5-inch bait. It's going to be a little bit heavier. It's going to hold in the current the way it was with that 4-inch bait an hour ago. About the third cast with that 5-inch bait, I got stomped about as hard as I've ever had what I thought was a trout eat a bait, and I swung and missed. And I turned to my buddy John, and I said, John, if that was a trout, That was the hardest hit I've ever had out of a trout in my life. And at this point, I'd caught a couple 6.5, 7 pound trout.
And was this the moment that he saved your life from jumping off whatever structure you're fishing off of?
No, because I didn't. We had also caught like 1 or 2 redfish that night, and a redfish will eat a storm bait pretty hard too. And it's not uncommon to catch a redfish in this spot.
Oh, gotcha.
So
gotcha.
I mean, it does happen. You know, I've hooked 30, 35 inch redfish in this spot and had them hurt my feelings because there's a lot of pilings in this spot and stuff like that. So because of I knew exactly what I had done on that cast for 3, maybe 4, if I remember correctly, casts. I cast it to the exact same spot. I counted it down. I swung it through that same piece of water that I got that bite that hurt my feelings a couple casts earlier. And it was either 3rd or 4th cast later. And I was very focused at this point because of this. I got another bite, and I swung and connected.
And I got goosebumps right now.
And
telling the story well.
That fish did everything more than any trout has ever tried to do to hurt my feelings that night. So the spot that I'm fishing, that I caught this fish in, there's pilings within the top of your cast on a short cast. Like I could lay a cast well over these pilings where I'm throwing. So I caught him about halfway between. I hooked this fish about halfway between me and those set of pilings. I've never had a trout make a 30-foot run. That one did.
Man.
Golly.
When I stuck her, the first thing she did, she shook her head once. Like I stuck her, and it was a big thump after I stuck her, and then she just left like a constant 30-foot run, rod bent over, just zzz, didn't stop.
Did you immediately think it was a redfish
Yeah,
at
I was
that
going
point?
to say,
Yes,
that was my question.
I did, because we had caught 2 redfish that night earlier. But
oh my gosh.
it stopped right there after that run that I knew I was getting close to the pilings, but I knew I wasn't in them. And I made a good half a crank on my drag, because even if it was a redfish, I didn't want to break it off. Like I'd rather land that fish and release it and not leave it with a bait in its mouth. So I gave it one good half a crank, and I put some pressure on her, and all I felt was giant head shakes. Just my rod tip, like trout will do this thing, especially when they get over 5 pounds, where they'll stem tide. And by stem tide, I mean they'll sit in the current, not moving. Like your rod tip will stay in one place, and your rod tip will just go like this. It'll go, doom, 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 doom.
Yeah.
And that's just them sitting
I
in
love
one
the sound
place,
effects.
just shaking their head. Me and the guys that I fish with always call it the Browntown Shakedown.
The Browntown Shakedown.
I don't know why we call it that, but it's been in our
I know
vocabulary
why, 'cause it's a great name for it.
It's been our vocabulary for a long time.
That's awesome.
They just shake their head real hard, and they stem tide. They don't come up to the surface. They don't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that's when my mind changed, and I said, I really think that's trout. And I told John, who was fishing about 20 feet away from me, so I'm going to need a net. I don't carry a net on me very often. I do since that night.
Yeah. I was going to say, I bet you do now.
Oh my goodness.
So I usually land my fish by hand. I mean, I always have, and never carried a net on me before. And I guess when you're fishing 12 pounds test and big fish, you really want a net. So I started fighting this fish a little bit more easy, like when I really thought it was a trout. And I'm not going to say that I knew it was a trout until it was in the net, because I didn't.
Yeah.
So I fought this fish, and she ran against the tide after this. Not ran, like not took line, but she turned around and went against the tide up current. And that's when I really thought she was a trout, just because of the way she was acting. And there's a old crab pot buoy in this spot that sticks up, and I felt my line go around it, and I was like, here we go. I got I mean, it's either it's do or die at this point, and I just big side pressure on the fish. I just laid my rod tip over the water the other direction, and I turned her, and John stepped in between me and the fish, and slid her in the net.
Wow.
John
I just lived that moment.
John was standing in between me and that fish.
God, I wish I'd been there.
I remember, I'll never forget it. I said, "Is it a redfish?" He said, "No, it's a fucking trout." And he turned around and handed, like, he had the net. He didn't even have the net like by the handle. He had the net by the ring on both sides and handed me my fish.
Wow.
And I grabbed the net and I looked at it, and I didn't say much for a good 5-6 minutes. I've been hunting that fish for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wasn't 10. I didn't break double digits that night. I will someday.
Oh yeah.
I have confidence that someday, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I will
break that 10.
See double digits.
Well, dude, you're like hunting after these fish like someone hunts after like a murderer or something, man. Like you're like a detective, like
a murderer. I was expecting some wild game animal.
I don't want to be a murderer.
A murderer is legitimate though.
Yeah,
Can I be a detective instead of a murderer?
No, you are the
You're
detective.
the detective hunting the murderer.
Sure.
Okay.
Like
okay.
You're like hunting the serial killer.
The swim
or
bait
something.
murderer.
So
the case of the swim bait murderer.
So
that's a different podcast we're gonna start next week.
I remember we took about after I looked at this fish in the net for a couple minutes. I finally had the courage to put my hands on it. And I picked her up out of the net, and I looked at John, and I said, "I got to go home." I've caught a decent amount of fish that are, over 5 pounds, like, over 5 pound trout, citation trout. I let them go 90% of the time. I don't think I've ever killed a fish over 5 pounds other than that fish, and I did because it was in a tournament and I don't have a live well when I'm on foot.
Yeah.
That's not true. I killed one last year over 5 pounds for a tournament too, but it was like 5.25 pounds. But I literally drove after this. We have a couple pictures of that fish fresh out of the water. I wish I had them on my phone right now, but I don't.
Maybe we can get it and post it after the show sometime in the next couple
fine.
days.
I'll get you guys a picture of it. I might have to block some background out of it, but it's.
Oh yeah, I forgot it has the background.
We can blur some background.
Definitely send that to me pre-blurred. No, I'm just messing with
We'll blur it for you.
I drove with that fish in a bucket for almost. I caught that fish, by the way, at I remember getting in my car and it was 12:14. That's how much I remember this night. It was 12:14 when I got in the car.
14.
Like I remember starting my car with the fish in a bucket on no ice, and knowing that I didn't want to lose any weight out of this fish. And I drove for almost 40 minutes before I found a gas station open.
Wow.
35, 40 minutes. And I found ice, and I packed ice around that fish in the bucket and packed ice around its tail in the front seat of my car, no cooler. I drove home, and I woke up my then fiance, now wife, and said, "You got to come see this fish I caught." And she came out and she looked and she was like, "Oh, that's a big fish." And she went back to sleep. And I stood in my kitchen with the cooler open with that fish on ice. By this time, it was probably 2 a.m.
That's awesome.
And I drank about 6 beers, staring at this fish in my kitchen. And I fell asleep for about an hour because I knew that I had to be at the shop to weigh the fish by 7. I had it off the next day.
Oh yeah.
And I went and weighed it, and that's when we got the official weight on the fish, and that was the whole. That's basically the whole.
Did
story.
you win the year? Did you win the tournament that year?
I won the tournament that year.
Nice.
I did.
And
And
that's really what it's all about.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing.
He's like, no, that's not what it's all about. So dude, you took this. So here's the interesting part, because I love drama.
And then we got some great questions. Take the questions away after this too, Billy.
Yeah, we'll do some questions here. Love this story, man. Love the way you put it together. I felt like I was like in that moment, like,
oh, I was totally in the moment.
I was holding this cup like this is the truth. No. So dude, I want to know the reaction of everybody, because you work at Intercoastal Angler. What was the reaction when you walked that thing in there and showed it to all these dudes you work with, you're friends with, you talk trash and smack with? What was their reaction from your perspective? Because I'm sure they'll have a different perspective.
I guess they might have a different perspective than me, but I think that all the guys close to me, Ben at Intercoastal, Andrew that works with us, Arlen, all those guys, like, they know how much I care about this stuff. Yeah. I think they were as happy for me as anyone could be, like.
I was pissed when I saw it.
But it was like, I'm not gonna lie, like I mean, Judd knows me fairly well. I'm not the braggadocious type of person, really. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm like as humble as they come. You just
talked an hour about the biggest fish you've ever caught. What are you no, dude, I'm just joking.
Well, you guys
because we begged him to, and we staged you up for it.
Like I mean, I'm proud of that fish. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm not.
100%.
But that fish means more to me than most I've ever caught. Yeah. I literally had the day off and stood in the shop, and I wasn't at work. I shouldn't have been doing this, but like literally like drinking beers and telling people to look in the cooler out front. Like, like,
hey, open that cooler.
You want to see
and I did.
You want to see something life changing? Open that cooler.
I mean, it boggles my
That's
mind
awesome,
how thick that fish is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean the like. The benchmark of a big trout is 30 inches. And a 30-inch fish will usually be somewhere around 8 to 10 pounds, depending on thickness and this, that, and the other thing. I unfortunately have never caught a 30-inch trout.
So what was the measurement on this one?
29 3/4.
Oh, man.
Dude, perfect.
But
that's even like better.
One of my close buddies that I respect as a trout fisherman, my buddy Lee, caught a 31-inch fish that year in the tournament that went 8-8.
And I bet it was still the happiest day of his life too. Huh?
It's one of the biggest trout I've ever seen.
Yeah,
around here.
Wow,
I've seen pictures of bigger ones, but like, there's guys out there that do the same thing I do. Like, Our thing is no bugs, no boats, which means no shrimp, on foot.
Just on foot.
Yeah.
So, dude, say if I'm going on foot, man, like, and obviously you don't have to tell me any spots or anything, but so if I go, like, do I just go, like, find a creek and get in the middle of it and start walking on low tide? And
no, you're looking for very specific stuff. Outside bends and when you're talking about creeks in any way, outside bends are going to be your deepest water.
Gotcha.
And you're looking for structure. You're looking for stuff they can hide behind, get out of the current. Big trout especially are lazy. They don't want to work for anything. They want to lay behind a piece of structure that blocking the current from them, that they can literally sit there behind that current, behind that rock or hump or whatever it is in the bottom.
Yeah.
And when something big comes by, all they have to do is go,
yep,
and eat it and go back.
And grab it.
That's all they want. It's just like any other big fish. Big trophy species of a lot of fish, a lot of trophy fish that we fish for. I don't categorize redfish like this because redfish are a weird fish.
They are weird fish.
Yeah.
But like bass and trophy brown trout and like, speckled trout, like we're talking about, snook. They're lazy. Stripers especially, like.
Yeah, so there's laying behind
a lot of fish that feed in current.
Yeah, a lot of fish. Yeah. That's a good point.
A lot of trophy fish that feed in current.
Yeah, they're ambush predators in current. They're lazy. I think flounder are very similar in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Here was a good question I saw. It was by Dan Avan. He said, "What is the smallest you'll go on a bait when you're really just targeting, a 5+ pound trout?"
One of my favorite baits for trout in general, all around, and it's a great search bait, and I've caught some big fish on it, would be a trout trick. The original, not necessarily the original, but that same size. Not the swimming ones, but the full size trout trick.
Just the little soft stick bait.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's basically a trick worm.
Yeah.
When I first saw that bait, I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world, and then by the end of that season, me and one of my buddies were ordering by 100 packs before you could even get them in shops around here.
Jeez.
So, I tend
color preference,
mood ring. I honestly tend to fish the original more than I do the Z-Man one.
Who makes the original? Is it Trout Trick?
They own it now.
Z-Man owns it. Okay.
Z-Man is still making that bait. There was guys out of South Carolina that started making that bait. Yeah. And I believe that bait is actually the Gambler Shaky Shad mold.
Okay.
Which is a bass bait. It was a drop shot bait.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
now, are you using any Pro Cure or anything like that? Any extra sauce?
On my soft plastics, I do fish Pro Cure, especially in two conditions, or not in one condition is what I meant to say. And there's two things that I'll add to this: dirty water or rough conditions. If it's windy out, sound and scent are big time. So if I'm fishing in the surf, which I do a lot of this stuff in the surf, if it's rough that night, I'm going to fish a rattle and I'm going to fish scent. I'm going to give those fish every chance they can to find what I'm throwing at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I was talking about earlier with the things you have control of.
Now, do you mainly fish in the surf, or do you fish just a little bit everywhere, wherever you can walk?
I fish anywhere I can get to safely on foot. And I'm really, really, really considering buying a kayak this year to get to a couple more places without having to have the boat with me, because the boat can be amazing, but it can also hinder you. But if I just want to get to a point across here, 300 yards away, I'd rather have a kayak to do that and just be stealthy and paddle over there, pull the kayak up in the reeds and fish that point. I think that's something that I'm going to spend some more time this season doing.
I think some of the swings you can get on foot in areas when you're fishing that current and not be in the water, being loud. I mean, you've got way more stealth fishing 100%. From the bank, and,
100%.
And you can really make minor moves on foot to adjust your swing just a little bit.
And you're literally talking about taking 2 steps to your left or right.
Right.
And it's and what you're saying is 100% correct in my head.
Yeah, for sure.
That you can.
And that's the nice thing about the spot lock on trolling motors, I guess more so than an anchor, is you can pretty stealthily adjust your boat in much smaller movements than an anchor.
Yeah.
But you're making noise in there. Who knows? When you're sitting on a deep trout hole, who knows if you pull up there and that spot lock might drop those fish back 5 or 8 feet because of that noise and vibration.
And I don't know that it does or does not. So I'm not going to claim to, but I know being stealthy with an anchor and dropping an anchor. This is an example of why I think an anchor is better. Is that, or being on foot is better in that situation where you're trying to pick apart an area, is that I've dropped an anchor and made the same swing 6 times, and I think that dropping that anchor was enough to mess those fish up for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Where they'll settle back in 20 minutes after you drop that anchor and start feeding them again.
Yeah.
That anchor was enough to mess them up, and I think that people don't think enough about stealth. I guess is what I'm getting at. Even if you're going to use a trolling motor, people will run full speed into a spot and then put their trolling motor down on spot lock. Where personally, I'll stop 50 to 100 yards from that spot and troll a motor up to it.
Yeah. A couple comments here. One, Andrew DeMaro said he caught a 16-pound triple tail on the trout trick in Mood Ring. So speaking,
is that what he caught that fish on?
That's what he said. He said
that's awesome.
That's so cool.
And we posted that on our Instagram. If you guys haven't
seen
that
fish is beautiful, man. I mean, it's the biggest one I've ever seen caught in North Carolina. That I know of.
I mean, I know
I'm sure there's bigger ones.
Judson's not going to say this, but we saw that fish days before. No.
No, we didn't see that fish. We saw a really big triple tail,
We did see a big one, but
that was a monster.
Dude,
I don't know how big the one we saw was.
I don't know either.
Dude, I don't know what the record is here, but I've seen a lot of triple tails. I've never even personally caught a triple tail. I've seen them and tried to pitch stuff at them, but never got a bite out of them.
Yeah. That's one thing to do, right? If you've got a boat and can get in the ocean, run around, look for floating debris in the ocean. There's so many triple tail moving south right now. The past 5 times I've albie fished, I've seen at least 2 or 3 triple tail out there. The other day I saw 7, and a lot of little ones. Dude, but I've been running over some good ones too. They're out there, a mile off the beach right now.
2 little guys that come into our shop. Actually, Chris that works at the shop with us. His son was 5 miles off the beach yesterday, just kingfish and doing his thing. He's like 14 years old.
Dude crushes it too, man.
Oh, he kills it. He's one of the fishiest little dudes. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with in a couple of years.
Yeah.
He just gets after it. But Zeke, he was 5 miles off the beach and found a piece of refuse just floating out there, and he said there was literally over 100 triple tail on it. Jeez. And they caught 7 apiece, 2 guys on the boat.
Wow.
Yeah. If you can get out there, from that mile, honestly, probably anywhere out to 15, 20 miles, but there's fish right on the beach. Every piece of decent floating something in the water that I pulled up on lately.
I think it has something to do with the storm, because even like this time of year, you still don't usually see that many around here.
Yeah.
We catch them in the river, or not we. I say we. I've never caught one. But you see them in the river on crab buoys and stuff like that a lot this time of year, from like August through September.
If you're Lieutenant A, you catch them in the river.
A lot of guys, honestly, Jeff Wolf is the man at catching those things. He's got that stuff wired.
That's crazy.
He catches a bunch of them every year.
Wow.
But then again,
that might be
Jeff Wolf has been fishing that piece of water for 35 years.
Yeah.
And he deserves to catch every fish he catches down there.
Every fish he can, yeah. Here's another good question from Tyson Phil, y'all. You know him?
What's up, Tyson?
Oh, yeah, you know Tyson good. He says, how has the married life affected fishing?
Hasn't changed. We've been together for almost 14 years before we got married. She knows the deal.
Yeah, you guys have that. That's good, man. Let's see. You
so what would you find more important? There's a question kind of asking about, really good structure or really good current. And I know the ultimate answer is good, current.
Both.
And both. But if you're, what do you think is more important? Structure. Okay.
Absolutely. Because there's plenty of places that I would consider what I call the desert, where it's just flat bottom.
Yeah.
That have plenty of good current in it that don't hold fish.
That's a really good point. Really good way to put it.
I'd rather it be slower and have some structure than have current and nothing.
So let's break down real quick, because we haven't talked about this, but we'll just break it. I don't think we have. If we have, then we won't. But like as far as your rod size, tell us a little bit about your rod and reel setup. And we were right over an hour, so we'll maybe talk about this and then bring it down to a close.
That's fine.
And we'll have you back on another show. Man.
I think we definitely should
to talk about some other fishiness.
I truly, with that stuff, because you are on foot, so you limit yourself, and you might be trying to reach some stuff that maybe the longer your rod, if it's the right action for the type of lures you're throwing, the longer your rod, the more distance you're going to get out of it. I tend to fish nothing under 7.5 foot. Most of my rods are 8 to 8.5 for doing this type of fishing. I really like an 8-foot medium light. I fish 10-pound braid to a 12-pound leader. I feel like you get the most casting distance and the most sensitivity out of it. Trout, other than when you hook a really big one, don't usually pull a ton of drag. A trout over 6 pounds is a different animal. They tend to fight a lot more like a redfish right off the bat, where they will make some fairly big runs and do some outlandish stuff that you've never felt a trout do before. But I think that you're still never going to put more than 5 or 6 pounds of pressure on a fish like that. So 10-pound braid, 12-pound leader, 8-foot medium light, 25 to 3,000 size reel. I'm a huge proponent of Shimano reels. I like Lamy glass rods. I fish a lot of Lamy and a lot of Shimano. It's kind of what I like.
Your wife just jumped on and said his wife is the best ever.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. Man, it's been so much fun having you on the show. We knew it was going to be...
It's been a blast, man.
We knew it was going to be a fun show. And, I like... Because when I come into the tackle shop, I just wind you up and let you rip and give me all kinds of information. And I go like, I just forgot everything he just said. So, but now I got you videotaped. I got you on tape so I can go back and,
sit back, take
watch
notes.
it again. Yeah, I can go back and watch it again. But, man, is there any last couple of things that you want to leave the audience with or our listeners to say, hey, I want to encourage you to... whatever?
I do. I guess. I think that what like the main thing that I want to get on the show about is that like a lot of people don't have boats. A lot of people like. I want to encourage people to get out there and search and find these spots that these fish live in, and do well. I want people to love what I love. I think that it's an important community that people get out and do. Just in fishing in general, that it's not that hard to just go fishing for a couple hours after work, or I spend entirely too much time into the night, but you don't need to go catch good fish. You don't do your research, fish as much as you can, have fun while you're doing it, and also, like I said earlier, we don't have the control of that much stuff.
Yeah,
be in control of everything you can.
Control
That's
what
like
you
one
can.
of my biggest. Yeah. One of my biggest tips to anyone that fishes for anything is change that leader, tie a new knot, make
Swap
sure
the
your
hooks
hooks are sharp. All that stuff is huge. It's one of the biggest things in fishing that people overlook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's good information. That's good life information.
That
by the way.
That is.
Just always control what you can. So, man, appreciate you being on the show once again, dude.
I'm stoked that you guys had me. It was awesome.
Happy birthday again.
Thanks, guys.
Freaking birthday.
How old are you today?
I'm going to be, or I am not going to be. I'm 37.
37.
37.
That's good, man. That's good. I'll be 33 in a couple weeks. So, I'm right there holding the 30s down with you.
Yes, sir.
So, totally excited about it. So, yeah, man, appreciate you being on, and we'll have you on again for sure.
I'd love to. Anytime you guys want.
Absolutely, man.
It's not into a microphone.
Well, Joe, there we go, man. Episode 15 right here on the Eastern Current. Next week we're going to be back if it's October 1st, which I think it is. Man, I don't even know what day today is.
Man.
The 24th, so that's the 1st. So we're going to be back on here with Christopher Bush. He is out of Texas. He actually runs a blog and now just started a podcast called The Speckled Truth. I believe I'm saying that right.
Yep.
So we're going to be talking about targeting trophy trout. So kind of a continuation.
I honestly can't wait to listen to that too.
Yeah. So you know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. He runs a great website and or Instagram and all that stuff. I've been following him for a long time now.
Dude's got a lot of 30-inch trout.
Dude,
granted, I think they got a few more 30-inch trout down there, but still very, very hard to catch a 30-inch trout down there.
It's not easy anywhere.
No.
They're finicky fish.
Yeah, man, you got me like Jones into.
I know. What are you doing after this?
What am I doing after this? Let's go.
If I could drive, I'd go.
Well, we got two cars. We'll make it happen.
We do.
So anyway, cool, man. Well, we appreciate everybody watching. We're going to go ahead and give this away right now. Not this particular one. I'll send you a new one. But this is our speckled trout tumbler from fishtumbler.com, a website my wife and I own. So go in there and check out some of the other fish tumblers. We should probably have some more product on there, but it was one of those fun things we started. So, Judd, can you bring up
I'm looking up the shares.
Yeah, perfect.
We got 26 shares here.
26, man. Here we go.
Ready? Scrolling back and forth.
I don't know if that's okay. That's like an old Western.
Cameron Metcalf.
Here we go, man.
Shared a live video. Live now. Check them out.
Send me your address just here on Facebook Messenger. You can find me on my profile, either Billy Thorpe or just right through the Eastern Current page, and I'll ship that thing out to you. I'll get to you here in a few days. So, yeah, man. Awesome, dude. Well, great show.
Awesome show.
Anything else going on that our listeners need to know about?
No, seriously though, go try to catch a big triple tail right now. Lots of triple tails around out there.
Lots of triple tail. Trout's heating up.
Trout fishing's really good. The albacore fishing's going on.
I see a lot of flounder breaking people's hearts.
A lot of big flounder breaking people's hearts.
See a lot of them. So guys, that is it for us here from Eastern Current. We really appreciate it. Go check out our podcast. It'll be up. I've been trying to upload them every Tuesday night, so you can listen to them Wednesday morning on your way to work. And really important to subscribe to that podcast. That really helps us out with Apple, and then also leave a review. And leave an honest review. If you like us,
an honest 5.
Tell us. Give us an honest 5. But if you like us, tell us. If you don't, tell us. And also, if there's somebody that you would like to see us have on our show, or you think would be a good asset or a topic or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook, and we will take everything into consideration. We do this show every week at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, so you can check us out live, or once again check out the replay either on Facebook, YouTube, or on our podcast. Just search for Eastern Current. And we'll be back next week, episode 16, with Christopher Bush. It's going to be so much fun, man.
It's going to be a good one.
Trophy Trout. It's going to be good.
Trophy
see you guys
Trout.
next week. Have a great
Later.
weekend.